we're live.
All right.
You may proceed, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good morning to all attending the RTA's virtual meeting of the Board of Directors. The Governor's emergency declaration remains in force during the current COVID-19 pandemic, and pursuant to his executive orders declaring a public health emergency and recent amendments to the Open Meetings Act, we continue to operate under the permission to conduct our meeting without physical attendance requirements. As the head of the public body, I find it's not prudent or practical to hold an in-person meeting or to have staff or any member of the board at our headquarters during the meeting. Now let's review the guidelines. Keep your audio on mute as much as possible to minimize background noise, which may impair the recording of the meeting. When you have a question or comment, please raise your virtual hand and the board secretary will call upon you. Make sure to put your hand down when you are finished. When he calls on you, lower your hand before you begin speaking. And when we get to voting, please raise your hand to make a motion or a second. The board secretary will identify who is making the motion and the second for the record. After he announces the motion and second, lower all hands. Are there any questions at this time? With that said, I'll now call the meeting of the Board of Directors of the Regional Transportation Authority to order, and I will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. You may remain on mute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Secretary, will you please take the roll?
Yes. Director Indelcio.
Here.
Director Canty.
Here.
Director Carey.
Here.
Director Colson.
Here.
Director Fuentes.
Here.
Director Gathing.
Here.
Director Gorman. Director Groven.
Here.
Director Holt.
Here.
Director Cotel.
Here.
Director Lewis.
Present.
Director Melvin. Director Pang.
Here.
Director Ross.
Here.
Director Sager.
Here.
Chairman Dillard. 15 present, 1 absent, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. Item 3 is the approval of the minutes from the board meeting held on April 21 of 2022. Are there any comments or corrections to the minutes?
I see no hands raised.
If not, I'll ask for a motion and a second to approve these minutes as submitted.
Motion by Director Indelcio and a second by Director Carey.
Thank you, too. Mr. Secretary, please take the roll.
Director Indelcio.
Yes.
Director Canty.
Yes.
Director Carey.
Aye.
Director Colson.
Yes.
Director Fuentes.
Aye.
Director Gathing. Director Gorman.
Aye.
Director Groven.
Aye.
Director Holt.
Aye.
Director Cotel.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Yes.
Director Melvin. Director Pang.
Yes.
Director Ross.
Yes.
Director Sager.
Yes.
Chairman Dillard.
Aye.
15 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Item 4 is the public comment segment of the meeting. We've asked the public to submit their comments via electronic mail. Any comments we've received will now be read into the record by the board secretary. Jeremy, do we have any such comments today?
No, Mr. Chairman, we've received no comments at this time.
Thank you. So we'll move on to item 5, which is the executive director's report by Leanne Redden. Morning, Leanne.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I have a And I guess welcome to any guests that are listening in as well. I have a few announcements before we begin, and I'm pleased to report a couple of pieces of good financial news. Earlier this month, Moody's upgraded its rating on 1.7 billion of RTA bonds from A3 up to A1, noting that the upgrade reflects the resiliency of the tax base and the expectation that state funding is going to remain stable and timely, given the improved fiscal conditions of the state. I also want to congratulate our finance team and our controller for receiving a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association, and this is 27 consecutive years for our team. So, congrats to them. As a reminder, tomorrow is the final day for accepting applications for our Access to Transit call for projects, which opened on March 25. So if anyone has any questions about that call, they can find the information and an instructional video on our website. People can also can reach out to us, to the staff listed contacts on that page if anyone has any questions. And we look forward to providing you with an update on those projects that are selected later this year as we go forward. So next slide, please. I want to invite everyone watching or listening today to register for RTA Transportation Tuesdays throughout June. This is a 4-part webinar series that our staff have put together that will, once again, we've done this before, replace our annual planning workshop for this year. The free virtual sessions allow attendees to hear from experts from a variety of regional and national organizations, ask questions, and learn how the ongoing pandemic is shifting the way planners, economic development experts, and community stakeholders are interacting with transit. These panels are going to take place from 1 to 2:30 each Tuesday in June, and will be free to anyone who would like to join, but you will be required to actually sign in and register. So if you want to do that, check that out on our website. You can also get the link through our regional transit update newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks, or our connections blog. And if any other questions, board members, you can also let staff know and we can point you in the right direction. So next slide, please. So we do have a very full agenda. So as you'll note here, my comments are very brief this morning. We will begin the board meeting with a recap of the last Citizens Advisory Board, and Jackie Forbes is again with us to give you that overview. You'll then hear a brief update on the progress of the development of the strategic plan, as well as the quarterly presentation on the year-to-date performance metrics. So following those presentations, we'll ask for your vote on several items, including the financial results of the first quarter, an amendment to the 2022-24 operating budget, which will be the second and the final step in updating the current year's budget, and hopefully our last amendment for the budget, but we'll see. And today we'll also begin the process of developing the 23-25 budget, so already working ahead. Additionally, we will ask for your vote on an ordinance approving federal funding allocation agreements with Northwest Indiana and Southeastern Wisconsin, and an ordinance amending the RTA pension plan. Finally, we'll have a few contracts for you to authorize. So as I noted, my comments this morning are brief since we do have a big agenda. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. Happy to answer any questions, but back to you.
Thank you. Any questions of Leanne by any of the board members?
Mr. Chairman, I see no hands at this time.
Okay, thank you. I just want to echo what Leanne said about B and our whole finance team, not only with the upgrade in our bond rating, but also 27 years in a row of the Government Officers Finance Association giving us the seal of approval or thumbs up, so to speak. One thing Leanne did not say is Jeremy, myself, and her went to a luncheon last week with U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, and magnificent presentation by him. And we clearly have a friend in mass transit in the current secretary. And then last but not least, on the equity line, I went down with the governor, with Jim Derwinski and others, Senator Harris, Representative Will Davis, and cut the ribbon on a magnificent new project for a metro station at 147th and Sibley last week in Harvey. 1,000 riders a day from that station. And they have a second station, which is going to be upgraded as well in downtown Harvey. But in terms of equity and taking sometimes underserved communities and giving them access to good quality jobs and lives, that was a real good event with the governor in attendance, which is always important. So with that, moving right along to item 6A, and that's an update on the RTA Transit Citizens Advisory Board. Jackie Forbes, it's all yours, and thank you again for joining us.
Good morning, Chairman Dillard and members of the Board of Directors. Thank you for your time this morning. My name is Jackie Forbes, and I am the chairperson of the RTA CAB. I'm here to provide an update of the activities of the board. The RTA CAB last met on April 25th. During this, RTA staff engaged the committee in robust discussions around the strategic plan and the Forward for All campaign, provided a briefing on the federal relief funding amounts that have been received and the spend down in this region thus far, and provided an update of the 2021 full-year performance metrics for programs offered within the RTA's Mobility Management Department. Let me begin by talking about the strategic plan. Mr. Peter Kirsten, RTA Principal Planner, provided an update of the progress being made on the development of the next Regional Transit Strategic Plan. He reminded the RTA CAB members of the vision, principles, and the desired outcomes that are guiding the work. He indicated that 3 working groups have been developed to seek input from regional stakeholders on topics related to transit service, infrastructure investment, and financial responsibility, and 2 technical groups focused on the development of the 10-year financial plan and priority projects for the transit system. These working groups are made up of individuals from the service boards, civic groups, advocacy organizations, nonprofit organizations, the business community, and the transit systems riders. Mr. Kirsten stated that several of the RTA CAB members are participants in the working groups, that the RTA CAB would be briefed on the progress of the plan's development at each meeting of the board, and they have additional opportunities to provide input throughout the process. Next, Tina Smith, RTA's Director of Communications, provided a briefing on a new campaign called Forward for All that launched on April 3rd, 2022. She indicated that the RTA worked with the service boards to build a multi-year collaborative campaign designed to convey messages of how transit provides connection, momentum, evolution, community, and equity. She stated that in the first stage of the campaign, after 2 years of low transit usage, we wanted to begin by reminding the riding and non-riding public of the economic and environmental benefits of transit and the access to opportunity it provides. Future phases of the campaign will present the challenges to the system and build support for solutions and strategic initiatives stemming from the Regional Transit Strategic Plan. Ms. Smith ended her presentation by sharing content of the campaign and early information on how the campaign is performing. In addition, RTA CAB received a briefing on the federal relief funding amounts that have been received and how much has been spent down so far. Doug Anderson, RTA's manager, budget and business analysis, reported that in total more than $3.5 billion of federal relief funding from the CARES Act, CRISA, and ARP was received and allocated to CTA, PACE, METRA, and the RTA. Through January 2022, the region has drawn down almost exactly 1/3 of the available funding, and the existing relief funding is expected to last into 2025. He indicated that an updated projection of how long the funds will last will come after an RTA funding amendment request that is planned for today's meeting. Lastly, Mark Koljak, RTA's Division Manager, Customer Programs, provided an update of the 2021 full year performance metrics for the programs offered by the RTA's Mobility Management Department. This update included a statistical analysis of the ADA Paratransit Certification Program, the RTA Reduced Fare and Ride Free programs, and the RTA Travel Training and Mobility Outreach programs, and the RTA Travel Information Center. The impacts of the COVID-19 on all the programs were highlighted as part of this presentation. The next meeting of the RTA CAB will be held at 10 a.m. on July 4th, 2022. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Any questions?
One moment, Mr. Chairman. I see no hands at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Right. We'll move on then, and Jackie, thanks again. Item 6B is an update on the strategic plan, including a preview of the work underway in the stakeholder and technical working groups by Jessica Hector Sue, our engineer and great member of our team. Jessica?
Yes, good morning, Chairman. I love that you always introduce me as the engineer because I am an
I
engineer.
always think that's an extra plus.
That's right.
And I won't
Engineer.
even say MIT engineer, which adds extra prestige.
Yeah,
Thanks.
an engineer planner. So I'm happy to be with you again this morning to give you an update on the strategic plan. The next slide will remind you that we are developing, next slide. Hopefully the next slide will be coming. There we go. Recall that we're developing the plan over 3 tracks over the next year. We are now right in the middle third of this graphic where we are actually developing the content of the plan. For both the strategic planning track that's in red and the financial planning track that's in green, we've established working groups that are actually developing the content. And that will all come together in the fall when we have a draft plan, and then we hope to be to you with a plan to consider for adoption in early 2023. So since our last meeting, all the stakeholder groups have now gotten started with their work, and that's what I want to update you on today. They're going to continue in earnest over the summer and put together that draft plan, as I just mentioned. So let's look at the next slide. Before we dive in on discussion of the working groups, I want to remind you about the vision. Safe, reliable, accessible public transportation that connects people to opportunity, advances equity, and combats climate change. I know that this feels repetitious, but I think it's worth repeating this at every meeting so that we all kind of familiarize ourselves with this and we kind of get to know this as we're developing this plan. In the next slide, we're going to look at the principles that we've developed. Recall in April, I told you how we were going to define these 3 principles of equity, stewardship, and committed to change. We're now using those principles as a part of our working groups. So in the meetings that they're having even this week, they're talking about these 3 things as they think about the goals for the plan. So on the next slide, we have the outcomes that we've developed. Recall that we have 3 outcomes related to our transit system, 3 outcomes related to our region, and we are organizing our working groups around these outcomes. Each of them is assigned 2 outcomes. So on the next slide, we'll talk about the working groups again. So as Jackie mentioned, as we've been telling her and telling you and others, there are 3 stakeholder groups. The first one, the transit service working group, is focusing on the quality of transit service and the related positive implications for climate change. The infrastructure investment group is focusing on infrastructure investments both on the transit system and around the transit system. And then the financial responsibility working group is focusing on the balance between financial efficiency and actually doing what the transit system needs to do, which is connecting people to opportunity. So those groups have been meeting. I'll talk more about them in a minute. We've worked really hard to make sure those are diverse and include a microcosm of the region, I'm calling it. And then we also have 2 technical groups that are now meeting. So we're working hard on these groups. It is a lot of work, but it's also really great to have so many people involved in the process. And we're working hard to make sure that they cross-pollinate with one another too, so that the stakeholder groups that are doing the policy work and the technical groups who are digging into the weeds a little bit more are exchanging information with each other and staying in sync. So on the next slide, we'll look at talk about the stakeholder group makeup. I've mentioned several times that we have been trying to achieve a diverse recruitment there. So we have about 100 people participating in that process, representing RTA, the RTA board, CTA, Metro, PACE, CMAP, and 65 different organizations overall. We include people from all counties, from the city of Chicago, from the academic community, from private businesses, nonprofits, advocacy groups, and just transit riders as well. We conducted an intake survey at the beginning of the process to help us get to know our group members a little bit more and to get a better understanding of who is involved. We got about 58 responses to that, so about half of the people we asked have told us about themselves. About 90% of them are transit riders, with the heaviest representation being among CTA rail users, followed by Metra and CTA PACE as well, and ADA paratransit, so we have all modes represented. And the group, again, it's about half the people in the groups responded to our survey, but about half of that group is male and about the other half is female or non-conforming. 25% identify as a racial group other than white, and 67% fall into the 35 to 64 age cohort, with some people being younger, some people being older. So again, we're working toward that balance of diversity and representation across the region. We also made a new commitment to compensate individuals or organizations who are participating, as I've mentioned to you. We've had 9 people request that, so about 10% of the group has asked to be compensated. Those individuals asking for are usually people working for smaller community groups or advocacy organizations that don't have large budgets. And so by doing this, we're allowing them to participate. And a shout out to our administrative teams for making that possible. It's a bit of work to set that up, but we've been able to do that. We are always looking for ways to involve more people in the process. So if you think there are others who should be involved, by all means, let us know, and we'll continue to expand our outreach throughout the process. So on the next slide, we'll remind you about the process we're going through with the working groups. They're having 6 meetings. We're about halfway through right now. This week, yesterday, and today, they are having their 3rd meeting where they're refining goals, and they will move on then to developing strategies and performance measures. So it's moving along very quickly. On the next 2 slides, I just want to give you a quick kind of glimpse of what they're talking about. In the first, they're working on content. But in the first meeting, we asked them to share some of their hopes with us and some of their concerns so that we could get an idea of what's on their minds. Some of their hopes are shown on this slide. We heard things like people hope that we will have equitable outcomes. They hope that we will have some new consensus about what the value of transit is. They hope that we will be able to make some progress on some key issues that have been percolating across the region in the transit space. So lots of hopes. On the next slide, we hear some of their concerns. We heard concerns like, are we going to be paying attention to suburban needs? Are we going to be able to balance urgency for change with the reality of the circumstances in which we work? Are we going to be able to get buy-in from people about changes we want to make? So some very real concerns there as well. We hear those, and we are trying to work through both embracing those hopes, addressing some of those concerns as we work together over the next 6 meetings, in hopes that this group, again, will be part of a consortium of people that can help us move the strategic plan forward when we're finished. So on the next slide, we'll transition from talking about the stakeholder groups to talking about the 2 technical groups, just to give you an idea a little bit more of what they're doing. The 10-year financial plan group is led by our own finance team. On that group, we have experts from RTA, the service boards, and CMAP who focus on finance and funding. They started meeting in May. They will continue through August, so a little bit longer than the stakeholder groups will. And their goals are really to look at the longevity of federal relief funding. They're going to talk a bunch about that during the board meeting today as part of the budget process. But what in this context, they're going to look further out to the 10-year timeframe to look at what the implications are for federal relief funding when that runs out. And then they will work on some potential solutions for filling that gap, some scenarios. We've heard thoughts from some of our directors about reintroducing some scenarios. So we're going to use some scenarios to think about what could be ahead and talk about that in the financial context. This group needs to get into the weeds on the actual financial projections. So it's separate from the stakeholder groups, but it will be coordinated with them such that the policy ideas that are coming out of the stakeholder groups will be shared with this group, and this group will report out on what they're seeing and the kind of financial situation they're seeing to those stakeholder groups as well. So they'll be cross-pollinated. And then last but not least, on the next slide, the Priority Project Technical Group is also meeting. That is led by our capital team at RTA with others from our strategic planning team. And for that group, we have experts, again, from RTA, the service boards, and CMAP. They're also meeting starting now through a little bit later than the stakeholder groups. And what they're going to do is think about criteria for better defining and advancing those 10-year priority projects that we developed in Invest in Transit. We use those projects to push for Rebuild Illinois and to push on the federal side for funding. So we're going to continue to lean into that and think about how to define them, how to understand them, how to communicate about them, and work together to do that. This group will also be cross-pollinated with the stakeholder groups, specifically the infrastructure investment group that has a lot of thoughts about this area. So with that, the next slide that concludes my presentation for today. We will continue to come back every month and give you updates. At our meetings over the summer, I plan to have some more colleagues with me that can share some of the specific contents that are coming out of the working group. So look for more substance at future meetings, but we wanted to keep you up to date. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Jessica. Questions of the board or comments?
Director Ross has a raised hand, Mr. Chairman.
Morning, JD.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to compliment Jessica for giving an excellent summary of the work of the three groups. I'm one of 5 members of our board who are serving on one of the 3 planning groups, and I want to just tell you that I think we're getting some great input. There's an old saying that you don't necessarily want to know how the sausage is made, but in this case, I think it's important for us to be a part of the planning process and understand the kind of input that we're getting from people who have varying interests as it relates to transit. In particular, I want to compliment Peter Farrenwall and Heather Mullins. They're leading the infrastructure investment group. We're having some very robust discussion on a number of issues. I'm really impressed with the diversity of opinions that are brought to the table, but also how that discussion is managed by our leaders to ensure that everyone has an opportunity for input. So kudos to all of the staff who are leading this process, and compliments to my fellow directors, Carey, Polson, Groven, and Gathing, for giving of their time to also participate in working groups. Compliments and kudos to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ross.
You know, when we see different groups out there, you know, I stress to them our strategic plan, how much input we take from a number of sectors, and that number was well over 100. You know, we do plan and we do listen. So thank you very much, Jessica.
Thank you, and
So
thank you, Dr. Ross.
Thank you. Speaking of Peter Farrenwald, let's move on to item 6C, which is the quarterly performance report for the first quarter of 2022. Peter, morning.
Good morning, Chairman Dillard and the board members. Again, I'm Peter Farnwell, Manager of Strategic Planning, and I'll be presenting the results for the first quarter of 2022 in comparison to the first quarter of 2021. Next slide. So we continue to use the 3 goals from Invest in Transit, our regional strategic plan, to structure our quarterly reports. And I will discuss the service board operational and financial performance within the context of each strategic goal, as well as use a spotlight to focus on projects or programs related to each goal. And within this presentation, we make, again, comparisons to 2021. Recall when vaccinations were just becoming widely available, many school districts were still conducting remote learning, and Illinois was still under significant capacity limitations and mask mandates. In 2022, we see that most restrictions have been lifted, schools have been in session, and many employers have welcomed back employees to their offices. Next slide. So our first strategic goal is deliver value on our investment. It focuses on 2 key questions. Did we get more funding? And are we efficient stewards of the funds that we have? Next slide. So for this goal, we monitor progress by tracking capital and operating funding and expenditures. And looking at annual results, capital funding decreased by $683 million from 2021. The large year-over-year decrease stems from the granting of all remaining Rebuild Illinois bond funds in the first quarter of 2021, which totaled $2.6 billion in funding between 2020 and 2021. So we will discuss Rebuild Illinois bond funds further in the first spotlight. In addition, the 2022 amount shown does not include the infusion of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funds that will add about 40% to the federal formula funds included in the capital program. Year-to-date capital expenditures of $303 million was a 24% increase from 2021, a difference of $59 million. And expenditures are increasing as their service boards move from design to construction on important projects that are funded with Rebuild Illinois bonds and PAYGO funds. The system-wide operating cost per passenger trip of $11.45 was about 1/3 lower compared to the first quarter of 2021, and the fare revenue per passenger trip of $1.52 was 14 cents higher compared to first quarter last year. Both of these figures are significant improvements that stem directly from increased ridership. Next slide. So for the first spotlight, we'll focus on the Rebuild Illinois bond funds. All of the Rebuild Illinois bond funds, $1.4 billion in 2020 and $1.2 billion in 2021, have been programmed and granted. And programming is the first necessary step before funds can be granted and then expended. Once funds are granted, expenses can occur over a period of years as a capital project is designed, implemented, and completed. Programming those remaining funds in 2021 is the reason there was such a large decrease in this Q1 annual capital funding. And by ensuring that all funds from the Rebuild Illinois program are granted, the service boards have certainty about funding for important projects and can begin the design phase. So this chart reflects actual use of the Rebuild Illinois funds over the past 4 quarters, culminating in that year-over-year 24% increase in capital expenditure that occurred in the first quarter of 2022. And this included these projects. CTA expended $24 million in the first quarter and $65 million over the past year. Some of the main projects advancing include rehab of the 5000 series rail cars, design and construction of 61st Street non-revenue vehicle rail shop, and purchase of new buses. And Metro expended about $34 million in the first quarter and $40 million over the past year. Some of the main projects advanced include purchase of new rail cars and rehabilitated locomotives. Metro has also several station renovation projects that are in design. Pace expended $13.4 million in the first quarter and $40 million over the past year. Some of the main projects included advancing the new Joliet bus station and the I-55 Plainfield garage. Pace is also using funds from Rebuild Illinois to design changes to garages around the region to support electric buses. And as we continue to report on Rebuild Illinois, we will see expenditures increasing as more projects move from design to construction. And then after 5 to 7 years, we will see many projects begin to wrap up and the need for new state funding will again be at the forefront. Next slide. So moving on, the second goal is build on the strengths of our network, where we ask, did the region become more transit friendly? And are we focusing our limited resources wisely? Next slide. And for this goal, we have been measuring vehicle revenue miles. We look at vehicle revenue miles, which is, again, the total miles the buses and rail cars travel in revenue service, as it reflects the amount of service available to our riders. The year-over-year percent change for the last 10 years is noted above each bar here. Vehicle revenue miles for the first quarter of 2022 was 0.5% higher compared to 2021. And over the 10-year period, reflects a tier down 14.2%, or about 8.2 million miles. Next slide. And for this spotlight, we'll focus on trips taken throughout the region because we have not seen the same increase in transit use that we have seen for other modes. To the left of the dashed line, we can see trips taken on all modes of travel. This data comes from a company called Replica and their product trends, which is an activity-based travel demand model, but created from a variety of data sources such as cell phone data and credit card sales. We have access of this data through a partnership with IDOT. The trips shown here on the left include all travel, transit, auto trips, auto passenger trips, walking, biking, rail, ride, hail, taxi, etc., for the residents within the 6-county region. And the bars to the right of the dash line reflect only transit trips. As you can see, the volume of all trips declined by 17% in the first quarter of 2021, but in 2022, the volumes rebounded and actually exceeded the 2020 levels by 22%. In contrast, public transit trips dropped by 2/3 in 2021, and to date remain 50% below 2020 levels, because we have not yet seen transit return to the level of total travel. Next slide. And our third goal is stay competitive, where we ask, are we providing the kind of services that people want to ride? And are people satisfied with it when they do? Next slide. And for this goal, we track ridership as well as metrics related to speed and reliability. System-wide ridership for the first quarter of 2022 was 59.1 million, which is 19.4 million higher compared to the first quarter of 2021, an increase of 49%. The system-wide average speed was 15.0 miles per hour, 3% higher compared to 2021. And first quarter on-time performance was 82% for CTA bus, up 2.2 percentage points, and 53% for CTA rail, a decrease of 5.4 percentage points. Metro reported higher on-time performance in 2022 by just over 1 percentage point, and exceeded its target of 95%. And Pace bus on-time performance was not available at this time. Next slide. And for our third spotlight, we're going to provide an update of observations about riders' expected return to transit. Again, for the third time, we've reached out to our customer satisfaction survey panel to ask about their current use of transit and about their feelings and expectations regarding their future use of transit. And in asking the question, when do you expect to be riding transit regularly? The summer survey respondents in the orange line on top of this graph anticipate a rise in use over the next year, leveling off to about 85% of the respondents feeling that they would be returning to transit by late 2023. The December survey results shown by the red line occurred as concerns about the Omicron variant were prevalent and showed a slower expected return throughout 2022, but ending at a very similar level at what respondents told us in the earlier summer survey by the end of year 2023. And the third time we asked our panel, as shown by the blue line, in this past March, we see a slower return to transit than earlier thought. But by the end of next year, about 80% of riders expect to return to regular transit use. Next slide. So in summary, Rebuild Illinois bond funds have all been programmed, and the service boards are ramping up spending efforts. Transit trips are not rebounding as quickly as all trips, and our riders have repeatedly indicated that they do expect to substantial return to regular use by the year end of 2023. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Great, Peter. Thank you. Peter's another great planner, engineer.
Thank you.
University of Illinois, another great engineering school. Any questions or comments for Peter?
One moment, Mr. Chairman. I see no raised hands at the moment.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it, Peter. Item 7A is next, and that's the resolutions certifying the financial results for the first quarter of 2022. B, you with us this morning? Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the
Nice
board.
work
And
again. Thank you.
Today, I will be asking you to certify the service board's financial results through the first quarter against the budgets adopted in December, not against the budgets that are being considered for adoption later in the meeting today. I will also update the board on recovery ratio performance and service board drawdowns of federal relief funds, But first, a brief discussion of our primary metric for evaluating substantial accordance with budget, which is the operating deficit performance. Next slide, please. In March and April, we covered operating revenue and operating expenses as focus areas in the financial performance presentations. Those are the only two measures that enter into the operating deficit calculation. Operating deficit is operating revenue minus operating expense, resulting in a negative number, hence the label deficit. It measures how the service boards perform as an unsubsidized business. So you will notice that sales tax, PTF, and relief funding are not in the equation. Rather, those funding amounts fill the gap represented as the operating deficit. This is why the operating deficit is sometimes called a funding requirement. It determines how much funding is needed to achieve balance. Let's use CTA first quarter results as an example. For the first quarter of 2022, CTA's budget adopted by the RTA board in December anticipated $78.9 million of operating revenue and $444.5 million of operating expense for a budgeted operating deficit of $365.6 million. CTA's actual revenue results for the first quarter were just slightly unfavorable to that budget, but their operating expenses of $411 million were over $30 million favorable to budget, more than offsetting the small revenue shortfall. This produced an actual operating deficit of $333 million, which was $32.6 million or 8.9% favorable to budget. Next slide, please. The results were similar for each of the service boards and ADA paratransit. We introduced this chart at last month's meeting, showing the operating deficit variances from budget. That 8.9% favorable variance for CTA that we calculated on the previous slide is at the far left, with even larger favorable variances for Metro Pace and ADA paratransit shown in the middle. In summary, all of the service board's financial results are in the green, supporting a finding of substantial accordance with the budget adopted in December. This recommendation relies solely on the favorable operating deficit variances shown here, and not on the recovery ratio results, since we have temporary relief through 2023. Next slide, please. Just a quick update on relief funding. The service boards drew down an additional $65 million in federal relief funding with this month's results and have now drawn down about 36% of the total available, up from 34% last month. The service boards are now requisitioning against each of the three tranches of relief funding, CARES Act, CRISA, and ARP Act, rather than drawing them down in sequential order. You will receive a more comprehensive update on the expected longevity of the relief funding in the next agenda item. Next slide, please. I'll close with an update of our goal of providing more financial topics of interest at the board this year. We've talked about operating revenue and operating expense at the last two board meetings. And with today's presentation, we can also check operating deficit off the list. Upcoming focus areas for the summer will include recovery ratios and an in-depth look at the RTA sales tax. That concludes my presentation. Back to you, Mr. Chairman, for any questions the board may have. Otherwise, I remind you that we need a vote on the proposed first quarter resolutions. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Bea. Any questions? If not, we need a motion and a second.
Looks like we have a motion from Director Sager and a second from Director Groven.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Secretary, please take a roll call.
Director Indalcio.
Aye.
Director Canty.
Aye.
Director Carey.
Aye.
Director Colson.
Aye.
Director Fuentes.
Aye.
Director Gavin.
Aye.
Director Gorman.
Aye.
Director Groven.
Aye.
Director Holt.
Aye.
Director Kotel.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Aye.
Director Melvin. Director Pang.
Yes.
Director Ross.
Yes.
Director Sager.
Yes.
Chairman Dillard.
Yes.
15 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. 7A is so approved. 7B is an ordinance amending the 2022 to 2024 Regional and Service Board operating budgets and financial plans and allocating CARES Act funding released by Southeastern Wisconsin. Doug Anderson, you want to say something to the board about this, please?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Doug Anderson, Manager of Operating Budgets and Analysis here at the RTA. This morning, we are asking you to consider an ordinance amending the 2022 operating budgets of the service boards and also allocating a relatively small amount of CARES Act funding to ADA paratransit operations. We will be highlighting the impact of the budget amendment on the service board and regional recovery ratios, as well as the projected depletion of federal relief funding. Next slide, please. This operating budget amendment is required by the RTA Act as a result of last month's funding amendment, which, due to improved sales tax performance, increased projected RTA funding levels to the service boards by about $130 million per year for 2022 through 2024. That increased RTA funding will, generally speaking, slow the projected drawdown of federal relief funding, and indeed a revised assessment of the longevity of the relief funding is an important byproduct of this budget amendment. The revised 2022 to 2024 service board budgets and two-year plans were received in early May and vetted by staff. The proposed budgets are balanced and meet each of the RTA Act criteria for adoption. Each budget and plan was also adopted by the CTA, METRA, and PACE boards at their May meetings. Next slide, please. Proposed service board expense levels reflect minor adjustments from the current budget. CTA recognized actual year-to-date expense performance through March, but left expenses unchanged for the balance of the year, resulting in a $33.2 million or 1.9% expense reduction. METRA's proposed expense level of $900 million is unchanged from the current budget, as that agency continues to implement service restorations and schedule adjustments. PACE Suburban Service increased projected 2022 expenses by $3.7 million or 1.4% to account for the impact of higher fuel prices. Unlike CTA and METRA, the PACE approach has always been to purchase fuel close in at market prices, which does make the agency's budget more susceptible to fuel price spikes, but can also result in fuel expense savings when prices decline. Although PACE staff was not required to submit a revised ADA paratransit budget, they elected to do so to recognize increased expense for 2022, also driven by fuel, as well as implementation of ADA paratransit projects utilizing TNC providers such as Uber. The increased ADA expense of $3.2 million is proposed to be fully covered by previously allocated CRISA funding, which has been carried over from the 2021 budget year. The expense assumptions for the RTA agency budget and debt service requirements were left unchanged from the budget adopted in December. On the bottom line, the proposed 2022 regional expenses total $3.378 billion, a decrease of $26.3 million from the December budget. This slide only shows operating expenses. The service boards left ridership and operating revenue essentially unchanged from the previous budget, as actual 2022 ridership has thus far held fairly true to those assumptions. Next slide, please. The April funding amendment also lowered the service board's required recovery ratio significantly due to an ongoing asymmetry between operating revenue and public funding. In other words, sales tax, which doesn't count toward recovery ratios, is higher and operating revenue lower relative to historical norms. Each of the service board's budgets meets or exceeds those required recovery ratios. And for the first time, the RTA system is poised to be budgeted below a 50% regional recovery ratio, as allowed by the temporary relief granted with Public Act 102-0678. For informational purposes, we have also begun to include in the board memo and ordinance schedules the recovery ratio without any federal relief funding included, shown on this slide at 22.4% for 2022. This is to give the board a sense of what permanent recovery ratio relief may need to look like as we move beyond the period of temporary relief, which extends through 2023. Recovery ratio relief is one of the many important issues being worked on in the strategic plan effort. Next slide, please. With this budget amendment, we can provide you with updated projections on the federal relief funding situation. This table shows by service board the amount of their combined CARES Act, CRISA, and ARP Act apportionments on the far left. The amounts drawn through 2021 and the revised amounts now projected to be drawn for the 2022 through 2024 period due to the higher RTA funding amounts contained in this proposed budget and two-year plan. Importantly, the improved RTA funding levels have combined with lower CTA expenses to resolve a $226 million shortfall, which existed in the 2024 plan adopted in December. In total, the service boards reflected almost $500 million less relief funding over the three-year period than was required by the previous budget and plan. As a result, federal relief funding is expected to last somewhat longer, with the amounts remaining after 2024 in the far right column of the table. Those amounts appear to be sufficient to provide balance for most of 2025 and perhaps even into 2026. A major caveat with these projections is that they will continue to change as we adjust our sales tax forecasts and the service boards begin to develop their 2023 budgets and 2024-2025 financial plans for submittal to the RTA this fall. Next slide, please. Finally, the proposed ordinance also requests board allocation to ADA paratransit of $741,000 of CARES Act funding, previously apportioned to southeastern Wisconsin, but recently released back to the RTA. The original CARES Act allocations were made by this board in April of 2020. At that time, no CARES Act funding allocation was made to ADA paratransit due to the availability of sufficient reserve funds. This piece of funding was associated with the Round Lake Beach urbanized area, so it is suburban in nature and thus proposed to be utilized by PACE for eligible suburban ADA paratransit expenses, likely within the 2023 operating budget. This approach will reduce the amount of sales tax 2 funding required for ADA paratransit. I will close by asking the board to approve the 2022 regional budget amendment for the proposed CTA, Metra, PACE suburban service, and ADA paratransit operating budgets as contained in the ordinance and schedules. Subsequent 2022 quarterly results certifications will be made utilizing these revised budgets once adopted. That concludes my presentation. Back to you, Chairman Dillard, for any questions the board may have.
Great. Thank you, Doug. Any questions on this, Mr. Anderson?
One moment, Mr. Chairman. No raised hands at this moment.
All right. Well, let's have a raised hand for a motion or a second to adopt Doug's recommendations here.
We have a motion by Director Ross, a second by Director Canty.
Thank you. And with that, Mr. Secretary, please take a roll call.
Director Indulcio.
Aye.
Director Canty.
Aye.
Director Carey.
Aye.
Director Colson.
Aye.
Director Fuentes.
Aye.
Director Gavin.
Aye.
Director Gorman. Director Gorman.
Aye.
Director Groven.
Aye.
Director Holt.
Aye.
Director Kotel.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Yes.
Director Pang.
Yes.
Director Ross.
Yes.
Director Sager.
Yes.
Chairman Dillard.
Yes.
15 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. 7B then is approved. 7C is an ordinance approving the 2023 budget call for the annual operating budget, 2-year financial plan, and 5-year capital program. And Bill Lackman, I think this is yours, my friend.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, all board members. As Chairman Dillard said, this is RTA Treasurer and Budget Manager Bill Lackman. Presenting with me today is RTA Manager of Capital Programs, Tatiana Sanders. Today, we are seeking board approval to release the Budget and Capital Program Call, or Budget Call for short. The Budget Call kicks off the 2023 budget cycle and defines the budget development process. The proposed 2023 funding amounts, budgets, and capital programs, that is, all of the numbers, will follow in the coming months. First, I will cover the purpose, components, and operating portions of the budget call. Then Tatiana will present some of the capital program elements. Finally, I will review the budget calendar and request board approval to release the 2023 budget call. Each budget year is unique, and our transit system continues to face challenges, including the depletion of federal relief funding over the next few years and the need for recovery ratio relief beyond 2023. Next slide, please. The annual budget process begins in May and culminates in December when the board will consider the service board budgets and capital programs for adoption. The budget call lays out the budget planning requirements. The RTA and the service boards will work through each step, leading to a comprehensive budget, 2-year financial plan, and 5-year capital program. We will be looking for the proposed 2023 service board budgets and 2-year financial plans to demonstrate financial viability, operational efficiency, and program effectiveness, including the prudent use of federal relief funding. We will also verify that the proposed budgets and programs align with the emerging regional goals and priorities being discussed as the new strategic plan takes shape. Next slide, please. The key components of the budget call are shown here. As the region's transit system continues to recover from the COVID pandemic, the general steps of the 2023 budget development process will remain the same. The regional economic outlook is the basis for the sales tax forecast used to set funding levels for the service boards, as well as for the service board's ridership forecasts. The news is better now than at this time last year, with ridership rising past 50% of pre-pandemic levels, and sales tax receipts at record highs. The budget call outlines the information and statistics to be included in the service board operating budget submittals, including projected drawdowns of federal relief funding. For the capital program, the service boards will provide descriptions of all planned projects and how those projects tie to the core capital requirements and the regional strategic plan. Next slide, please. This budget cycle does have some unique considerations. First, the new strategic plan is well underway. While the plan is not expected to be finalized and adopted until early next year, its emerging themes should influence the development of the service board budgets, financial plans, and capital programs. We will need to secure recovery ratio relief beyond 2023. This could come via an extension of the current temporary relief or through permanent legislative change. To provide context for this, we will include in the budget materials the recovery ratio without federal relief funding, as in the previous agenda item, as well as without the various credits and adjustments allowed by the RTA Act. The 2-year financial planning horizon will include 2025, the year in which existing federal relief funding is expected to be at or near exhaustion. Accordingly, the service board's financial plans will need to project any budget balancing actions needed to close the gap between revenues and expenditures. We must continue to plan for transit operations after the depletion of federal relief funding. Here, the 10-year financial plan component of the strategic plan should provide useful guidance. To that end, the proposed 2023 operating budgets and 2024-2025 financial plans should reflect decreasing reliance on federal relief funding. The proposed service board operating expense levels must acknowledge that without additional funding sources, we are approaching the reality of transit system operations, again supported solely by system-generated revenues and pre-pandemic public funding sources. Finally, it is important for the service board capital teams to note that we have included in the budget call an earlier deadline for the submission of their draft lists of capital projects to allow RTA staff more time to evaluate these proposed projects. And with that segue, my colleague Tatiana Sanders will now address aspects of the capital program portion of the budget call. Next slide, please.
Good morning, everyone. The capital program development process this year will largely reflect previous year process and requirements, with anticipated changes in 2024 budget season following adoption of the new strategic plan in 2023. As a result, the capital program for each service board should continue to identify all capital projects to be undertaken in the new capital program in line with the capital program strategic core requirements and goals identified in Invest in Transit. The RTA also requests that the service boards provide preliminary estimates for additional capital funding from local sources, service board funds, and service board bond issuances planned for the new capital program. The RTA will publish on its website the estimates of the out years of federal formula funding amounts in the beginning of June. That will include the increases provided by Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act. In general, the amount of federal funding increased 38% for our region in 2022. In addition to the 5-year capital program, the service board will continue to be required to provide an updated set of 10-year priority projects that reflect the agency's top capital funding priorities. As part of the new strategic plan development process, the guidelines for defining priority projects and their selection and evaluation process will be determined this year and used in the future for updating the list of priority projects. The amounts of all state pay-go and federal formula funding sources in years 2025 through 2027 continue to be determined based on the performance-based capital allocation process established in 2021. In addition to budgets and funding sources, we continue to require an estimated or actual project start date and completion date to monitor project status, the capital program strategic core requirements and goals that are most impacted by the project, to communicate the impact of the capital program on achieving the goals and requirements of Invest in Transit, the regional and agency goals achieved by the project's impact on the capital program. We received very positive feedback from the service boards on the new formats for submission of capital program data we used last year. This year, the RTA has simplified Exhibit G, used for submitting project detail even more by pre-populating the available 2022-2026 data for each service board, and the draft Exhibit G will be due to the RTA on October 7, 2022. October 7, 2022. I'm sorry, 1 week before the main submittal deadline. Bill already mentioned that. Other elements of the capital budget call process remain the same, including opportunities for public input They are noted in the budget calendar. And now back to Bill Ekman. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Tatiana. I'll now close with a summary of the 2023 budget timeline. Relevant board meeting dates are highlighted here in blue. In July, the RTA plans to provide the service boards with preliminary estimates of the 2023 through 2025 RTA funding levels and recovery ratios for the upcoming year as a basis for the service board for discussions with the service board finance teams. Preliminary 2023 through 2027 capital program funding amounts will also be included. The operating and capital funding levels will be refined over the summer. The statutory deadline for adoption of the funding amounts is September 15th, which this year conveniently falls on the date of the regularly scheduled third Thursday of the month RTA board meeting. As Tatiana and I mentioned, a draft of the service board's capital projects is due on October 7th, a week before the main budget submittal deadline on October 14th, both shown here in orange. These dates strike a balance between giving the service boards time to develop their budgets while still allowing sufficient time for the RTA staff to analyze and consolidate the submissions into a proposed regional budget and capital program, as well as to prepare the required public documents and presentations. Next slide, please. The service boards are expected to conduct their budget and capital program public hearings in October and November before officially submitting their board adopted budgets to the RTA by November 15th. RTA staff will conduct our budget and capital program public hearings and county board presentations in November and early December. These are likely to also serve as public hearings for the strategic plan, which will be nearing completion in 2023. On November 17th, the service board leadership teams will present their budgets and capital programs to the RTA board and field your questions. Finally, on December 15th, we will ask the RTA board to consider the 2023 regional budget and 5-year capital program for adoption. That concludes our presentation seeking board approval to release the 2023 budget and capital program call. Tatiana and I would be happy to answer any questions. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Bill and Tatiana. Questions or comments?
Chairman, I see no hands raised at the moment.
Thank you. It's looking at that calendar for December 15th, always a meeting, Bill, that reminds me that we're in the holiday season when that one comes around. Yep. So we're going to need a motion in a second to approve this item if there are no questions or comments.
We have a motion from Director Carey and a second from Director Kotel.
Thank you, Pat and Tom. With that, Mr. Secretary, Jeremy, please take a roll call.
Director Indulcia.
Aye.
Director Canty. Director Canty. Director Carey.
Aye.
Director Colson.
Yes.
Director Fuentes.
Aye.
Director Gavin.
Aye.
Director Gorman.
Aye.
Director Groven.
Aye.
Director Holt.
Yes.
Director Kotel.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Yes.
Director Pang.
Yes.
Director Ross.
Yes.
Director Sager.
Yes.
Chairman Dillard.
Aye.
Coming back to Director Canty. Director Canty indicates aye. 15 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And 7C is approved. Item 7D is Our ordinances authorizing the execution of federal funding allocation agreements with Northwest Indiana and Southeastern Wisconsin and amending the 2022 to 2026 capital program funding. And Tara O'Malley, I believe, is going to present this to the board.
Yes. Good morning, Chairman Dillard and members of the RTA board. I am Tara O'Malley, Principal Financial Analyst of Capital Programs here at the RTA. Next slide, please. We are here to request the approval of two ordinances. First, we are requesting an ordinance to execute the full 2022 federal formula allocation letters of understanding agreements and attachments among Northeastern Illinois, Northwestern Indiana, and Southeastern Wisconsin. The second ordinance is to amend the 2022 to 2026 capital program, incorporating revenue changes associated with the increase in available federal formula funds. Next slide, please. Both ordinance proposals are a result of increased funding availability from the new bipartisan infrastructure law known as Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act, or IIJA. Before we talk about the information in the ordinances, let's review some of the highlights of IIJA, which was signed into law on November 15th, 2021. The law continues the discretionary fixed guideway capital investment grants program, which funds fixed guideway investments, including new and expanded rapid rail, commuter rail, streetcars, bus rapid transit, as well as corridor-based bus rapid transit investments that emulate features of rail. The legislation also reauthorizes surface transportation programs for fiscal years 2022 to 2026. Additionally, some of the focus for transit involves safety, with enhanced state safety oversight programs by strengthening rail inspection practices, protecting transit workers and riders from injuries, and ensuring safe access to transit. Modernization. This significant investment in transit will repair and upgrade aging transit infrastructure and modernize bus and rail fleets. Climate. Funding will support replacement of thousands of transit vehicles, including buses and ferries, with low and no emission vehicles. And finally, equity, providing additional funding to advance equitable public transportation planning and operations. Next slide, please. On April 6th, 2022, the Federal Transit Administration, or FTA, published the 2022 full federal fiscal year allocations for the 4 federal formula programs, which are 5307 Urbanized Formula, 5337 State of Good Repair, 5339 Bus and Bus Facilities, and 5310 Seniors and Persons with Disabilities. The first 3 formula programs fund capital projects. The RTA is the designated recipient of these funds and charged with calculating apportionments among Northeastern Illinois, Southeastern Wisconsin, and Northwestern Indiana. The sub-allocation with Indiana and Wisconsin are calculated proportionally based on the U.S. Census and transit operating data for each region. The Illinois portion of capital funding is split among the service boards in accordance with historically established shares. The 5310 funds go directly to the RTA for competitive distribution within the region. As required by federal guidelines, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning's MPO Policy Committee will consider all the allocations at its June 9th, 2022 meeting. After the RTA board approval of the funding sub-allocations, the RTA will provide a written letter to the FTA of the allocated capital federal funding to all recipients in the region. That letter allows service boards to start applying for federal grants. Next slide, please. The result of the first calculation shows that overall the 2022 appropriations for the three federal formula funds, 5307, 5337, and 5339, is $728.8 million. When 5310 funds are added to that, the total amount awarded to Illinois is $738.4 million, which is 38% more than the 2021 federal appropriations issued under Fixing America's Surface Transportation, or FAST Act. Northwestern Indiana Regional Planning Commission and Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission both agreed to the apportionments on May 10th, 2022. Next slide, please. The funding for the 2022 to 2026 capital program includes increases for CTA, Metra, and PACE based on the available funds from IIJA. The program overall is increasing its federal formula funding by $194.57 million. Project detail changes associated with these additional federal formula funds will be subsequently submitted for board approval at a later date after the service boards amend their capital programs. As stated previously, the funding apportionments for 2022 are based on an historical formula, and beginning in 2025, a new performance-based methodology will be implemented for apportioning. Next slide, please. RTA staff has approved these requests and found them to be justified as outlined in the ordinance memo. That concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Questions? Otherwise, we need a motion in a second.
See no raised hands, Mr. Chairman. And I believe we have a motion from Director Holt and a second from Director Groven.
Great. With that, Jeremy, please take a roll call.
Sure. Director Indalcio.
Aye.
Director Canty.
Aye.
Director Carey.
Aye.
Director Colson.
Yes.
Director Fuentes.
Aye.
Director Gavin.
Aye.
Director Gorman.
Aye. Hit the wrong one.
Director Groven.
Aye.
Director Holt.
Aye.
Director Kotel.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Yes.
Director Pang.
Yes.
Director Ross.
Yes.
Director Sagar.
Yes.
Chairman Dilley.
Aye.
15 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And 7D is approved. Moving on, 7E is an ordinance authorizing the purchase of excess liability insurance policies by the RTA's Loss Financing Plan and Joint Self-Insurance Fund. Nadine, this is your area of expertise.
It's a strong word. Good morning, Chairman and Directors. This is an item that we present every year at this time to renew excess liability insurance that is purchased on behalf of RTA, CTA, Metra, and PACE. This year, we're asking the board to approve the purchase of insurance policies covering losses from $15 million to $100 million at a cost not to exceed $9,210,123. That's a slight increase over last year's premiums, less than 1%. Those policies will provide coverage from June 15 of this year through June of 2023. I believe there was a question regarding the term excess, which really is just a term of art referring to insurance that covers higher limits above already existing insurance or self-insured retention limits. In our case, each of the agencies individually purchases insurance or self-insures for up to $15 million in losses per year. Our policies, as shown in the tower attached to the ordinance, covers losses above that $15 million limit up to $100 million. This is insurance that we've purchased jointly since the early 1990s in an attempt to minimize the potentially devastating impact of an unexpected loss that could severely harm the region's finances. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding this coverage. We also have our broker on the line from Aon, Roseline, posted in case there are any technical industry questions.
Great. Questions of either of the two?
Mr. Chairman, I see no hands at the moment.
I have one, and either Nadine for you or the broker from Aon. So how volatile is the insurance market, and what's the trend along these types of lines on excess liability insurance?
I think the word horrible is not an overstatement of how things are going in terms of the insurance market, especially for transit. In particular, the markets are shrinking, meaning the number of insurance companies actually willing to cover transit is less than it has been ever before. Their capacity for those who are willing to cover us is also shrinking. So that means there's more competition in terms of trying to get insurance. So it's far more expensive than it was even a few years ago. And it's an issue that's become so serious for all transit agencies nationwide that I believe Congress is considering taking some form of action to protect us. And we're also working to consider some other options, such as, increasing our limit or creating a captive. We're looking at a number of other options that are legally permissible.
Great. No, thank you. I was reminded of the importance of this in reality last week when I went and visited the crash site of Metra's unfortunate accident and a passenger death at the Clarendon Hills station. So we can't operate without this, and I know the volatility of the London market is tough, and insurance it's getting more expensive as it gets more difficult to procure. So thank you. With that, somebody want to make a motion in a second that we approve this?
Director Indulcio has made a motion, and Director Canty with a second.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Secretary, please take the roll.
Director Indulcio.
Aye.
Director Canty.
Aye.
Director Carey.
Aye.
Director Colson.
Yes.
Director Fuentes.
Aye.
Director Gavin.
Aye.
Director Gorman.
Aye.
Director Groven.
Aye.
Director Holt.
Aye.
Director Kotel.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Yes.
Director Peng.
Yes.
Director Ross.
Yes.
Director Sager.
Yes.
Chairman Dillon.
Aye.
15 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And we have so approved. Just one other comment on 7E. I mentioned that we had seen the U.S. Secretary last week in Chicago, Transportation. And one of the things that he did stress as auto fatalities have increased nationwide, 43,000 last year. One of the comments he made was how, and I knock on wood, how very safe mass transit and rail travel are, in terms of, and especially related to automobile traffic. And he commented that that our safety record is really, really good. Things do happen. We move millions and millions of passengers, but he did comment and told me that one of the things that we should stress when we're doing our marketing plan, when Tina's doing our marketing plan, is from a safety perspective, mass transit is much, much safer than taking an automobile. So I just passed the secretary's comments around, as yesterday he had another press conference on safety, but on a relative comparative basis, mass transit is very safe to take. Moving on, item 7F is an ordinance authorizing an amendment to the RTA pension plan. I think we've seen the packet. Many of you have probably spoken with Nadine on this. And Nadine, do you want to say something on the ordinance 7F?
Sure, Chairman. Next slide, please. So good morning again to everyone. Before you is an ordinance which proposes an amendment to the RTA pension plan. Though a lot of the information I plan to present today has already been shared with you, in the interest of transparency, I will describe the current structure of our pension plan and how we recommend changing it. First things first, I am by no means a benefits or a tax expert, despite what the chairman has said. But somehow you chose me to chair the pension committee nonetheless, but worry not. The plan is in good hands as it employs a number of experts who assist in its administration and investments. Some of them are here today to ensure that any questions are answered accurately and completely. We've got McGuire Woods on the line, our outside counsel for pension, Katie Rack. She knows the plan inside out. She's been one of our lawyers for several years. We have Lance Weiss, one of our actuaries from Gabriel Roeder Smith, who is also present, as is Amy Williams. It'll be crystal clear pretty shortly how critical our actuaries are to this process. Last but certainly not least, Reed Ramsey. It's not even Reed Ramsey anymore. It's Alliance Pension now. Our representative Rob Reed from Alliance is also on the line, the plan's third-party administrator. The proposed amendment incorporates a number of amendments to existing benefits, structure, and procedures. Let's begin with the existing plan structure. There are 3 participating employers, Metra, PACE, and the RTA. The CTA has a completely separate pension, and we'll get into that momentarily. The plan is administered by 2 separate entities, the Pension Committee and the Pension Board of Trustees. I chair the committee, which handles the administrative side of the pension, such as interpretation of rules and general governance. Each of the agencies has 2 representatives on the committee. At this time, all committee members are attorneys or human resources professionals, and in some cases, Allison, both. The Pension Board of Trustees is chaired by RTA's treasurer, Bill Lackman. There are 7 trustees in total who are appointed by this board, 1 from each employer and 4 compensated non-employee trustees, all of whom act as fiduciaries to the plan. The trustees are supported by Makita Investment Group in addressing the plan's investments. Next slide, please. Ours is what's known as a defined benefit plan, which in most respects operates like other traditional government pensions. At the time of employment, every employee is immediately eligible to participate in the plan. Employees vest in their benefits after approximately 5 years of full-time service. A number of factors such as age, years of service, and salary history are used to calculate a fixed cash benefit paid from the date of retirement through the recipient's life. There are a variety of options available upon retirement, such as whether to take a lesser benefit, which will increase upon the death of the participant for his or her spouse, and some are eligible for a lump sum payout of benefits. Normal retirement age is 65 with an option to retire early and take a lesser benefit at age 55 with 10 years of service. The so-called rule of 85 that most of us are familiar with also applies to those wanting an unreduced benefit prior to age 65. Again, benefits are calculated in part based on years of service. The plan currently gives service credit to former CTA employees who are employed by RTA, Metra, or PACE after leaving the CTA. Sadly, the CTA's plan does not reciprocate. So this amendment would eliminate the service credit, which really is just an additional expense to the plan that no longer serves the agencies. Next slide, please. In terms of how the plan is funded, each of the employers makes an annual contribution, which is calculated pro rata based on salaries paid to active participants. As referenced in the prior slide, the plan is non-contributory, meaning that it's funded entirely by the employers. Employees are not required to make any contribution to the pension. The average annual contribution is approximately 14% of employee salaries. That's going to be important in a moment. As of the January 1, 2021 evaluation conducted by our actuaries, the plan is well funded at approximately 73% based on actuarial value. The plan currently has approximately 2,600 total participants, which is basically everyone, including retirees, beneficiaries, 1,156 active employees, 858 of whom are vested. Next slide, please. So let's get into the substance of the amendments we're requesting, which focus on increased transparency and flexibility. Next slide, please. The first is fairly perfunctory. We had been relying on an older outside counsel opinion that provided that the plan was not a public entity subject to the Open Meetings Act. So going forward and consistent with other local plans, we will increase transparency by opening up our meetings to the extent nothing being discussed is of a confidential or personal nature. Next slide. So to say that the pandemic has had an indelible and permanent effect on the workplace would be an understatement. This chart depicts just a few interrelated factors impacting the region's evolving staffing needs. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has maintained resignation stats since the start of the millennium. It's probably no surprise to any of you that 2021 broke all prior records for the highest number of resignations in a single year. Last December alone, 4.4 million workers nationwide quit their jobs. That's nearly 3% of the entire workforce. So we've all heard the term Great Resignation to describe this phenomenon. Some have dubbed it the Great Contemplation, the Great Reshuffling, and my personal favorite, turnover contagion. A little bit of hyperbole for you today. Whatever you call it, the point is that employers are competing for talent now more than ever before. And in today's talent marketplace, candidates know the value of their work, and they are leveraging it to demand a workplace and benefits that are different than just a few years ago. Suffice it to say that staffing needs are changing pretty dramatically. In some cases, there's a need to use voluntary attrition to right size, while in other cases, there's a need to bring on additional staff while addressing these new expectations from job candidates. Again, the talent marketplace truly is a brave new world for all employers right now, and we believe the proposed changes to retirement benefits offer just one of many tools we can use to meet those evolving challenges. Next slide, please. All three employers are balancing the need to compete for talent while also allowing for the possibility that for some employees, the great contemplation means they might prefer to accelerate their retirement, as so many have during the pandemic. And it's kind of a win-win, if you will. To that end, we are requesting to offer two new features in the plan. The first is a temporary window permitting the purchase of as little as 1 month and as much as 5 years of service credit. An interested participant will contact our pension administrator, who will then obtain a calculation from the actuaries of the specific actuarial cost of purchasing whatever time period the employee has requested. The employee must already be vested in the plan to be eligible for this feature. The plan specifies that all costs will be borne by the employee. The employee will then make the required payment, and upon full receipt of the payment, our records will reflect that additional service credit. The potential downside to this option is the cost to the employee. I suppose everything depends on your situation, but the numbers run by our actuaries show that this won't be an inexpensive option for most. Next slide, please. Case in point, our actuaries ran a number of different scenarios for us, but this depicts one example of what the cost would be for an employee who is 55 years of age, has put in 26 years of service, and has a salary of $100,000 at the time of making the purchase. So the cost of buying a single year is less than $20,000, but it starts to escalate very quickly from there. So again, the cost is based on the actuarial cost of giving that person this additional year of service, meaning the pension should be in no worse financial position due to any purchase resulting in early retirement. I'm not sure under what circumstances this person would want to purchase 5 years, but that cost is nearly $130,000. So it's likely this is not an option that droves of people will be flocking to. Unlike government buyouts you may have heard of, we aren't subsidizing any part of the cost. We aren't doing the buying, the employee is. But for those who really want to retire early and have the funds socked away, it might make sense for both them and the agency. I pray you won't ask me to get into the math behind these calculations, but thankfully GRS is one of my lifelines to step in and help. Next slide, please. The second benefit change that we're requesting is a new feature to the plan that we'd like to add: the choice to opt out of the pension altogether. So currently, new employees are automatically enrolled in the plan. This option would allow new employees going forward to completely opt out of the pension in favor of an employer contribution in a 401k plan. Again, in consultation with and following many discussions over nearly 2 years with our actuaries, third-party administrator, and outside counsel, we've developed a structure that we believe will enhance the three agencies' ability to compete with private sector candidates as well as public sector candidates. As a bonus, it's also possible we'll achieve some savings on the current cost of providing retirement benefits overall. With this option, new employees would be given a minimum of 90 days to elect participation in the pension as it exists today, or a 401k. All three agencies already jointly offer the same 401k plan for employees to make their own contributions, otherwise known as elective deferrals. This proposal would simply allow for employers to make contributions as well in lieu of a pension contribution. So let's compare the two options. Next slide, please. So I thought it might be useful to give you a side-by-side comparison of the features of the pension plan versus the proposed 401k option. Perhaps the most important metric on this slide is the employer contribution. Again, as I mentioned earlier, currently on average, employers contribute a little more than 14% of employees' annual salaries to the pension fund. Again, that's an average. The 401k contribution would be between 6 and 8% of employee salaries. Another important metric is the vesting period. As mentioned earlier, our pension plan's vesting period is approximately 5 years. The proposed vesting period for the 401k would be a 3-year cliff, meaning that employers would be making contributions to the plan from the date of employment, but the employee would not vest in any of those benefits until 3 years of service. At that time, the employee would then be 100% vested in any funds contributed by the employer. No employee deposit would be required, though the existing feature allowing elective deferrals would still be in place. While a 401k plan employs the ability to choose their own adventure in terms of investments, with the pension and the new OMA option, people will also have a voice in the pension's investments. In short, a lesser benefit would be offered than the pension affords for those who choose the 401k, but the employee would have a shorter vesting period, the portability a lot of candidates seem to desire, and more control over investments. And although the research shows that vesting periods have little impact on retention, the 3-year vesting period is a good balance of the retention investment metric and flexibility. Of course, there is a modicum of risk involved with this proposal. We do not know who will choose one option over the other. But one thing is certain, the likelihood that everyone of a particular demographic will choose the 401k option and that no one else will strikes me as extremely unlikely. And that is the only scenario in which we start to have an increase in the cost of providing benefits. So given the fact that in almost every scenario tested by our actuaries, the pension offers a far greater cash benefit than the 401k, that will likely sway at least some younger folks to follow in their parents' footsteps and choose the pension. That's consistent with all the research and is really the underlying reason why most private companies no longer offer pensions. Meanwhile, some mid-career management candidates who are at the peak of their career and might want to keep their mobility options open, they might choose the 401k. So in our estimation, this proposal is competitive with most private sector plans while also allowing us to maintain the kind of defined benefit plan that public sector employers typically offer. We can't always offer private sector salaries, but this kind of flexibility and choice is something we can do, and very likely at a savings to the employers. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, this slide describes some of the benefits we anticipate experiencing if the amendment is approved, as well as a few additional administrative changes to the plan, such as increasing that non-employee trustee stipend by a whole $25 per meeting, and clarifying some of the language in the plan regarding long-term disability and service credit. The hallmark of this amendment is proactively addressing changes in the talent marketplace so that we can be competitive with both private and public sector employers. In the past, government primarily recruited from other government agencies, but our needs have changed. The talent pool's expectations have also changed. We believe this proposal gives us a couple of tools among many others that will enable us to meet those challenges while also protecting the bottom line. That concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Nadine. And yes, we do have tremendous outside counsel on many levels on this. Any questions on this?
Mr. Chairman, Director Gavin has a raised hand.
Yes, Director Gavin, good morning.
That's a mistake. Sorry. I'll put it down.
No problem.
Director Sagar has a raised hand, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, Doctor, good morning.
Yes, good morning. This is really not a question. I just want to make a couple of comments. The first is that I know that all of my colleagues on the board are incredibly grateful for the very strong professional staff that we are blessed to have, not just in RTA, but also in our service agencies. And so we understand the import of our workforce and to our public service responsibilities. And so I just first want to say thank you, and there is recognition of that. I think we need to also equally acknowledge, as I believe we do, the import of remaining competitive in terms of that employee marketplace. And that's becoming more and more challenging simply based upon the current changes in the marketplace itself. Is that just solely brought on by COVID? I don't think so. I just think it is a generational shift. And we have to look at all of these types of factors that are impacting the job market and the employment conditions within various agencies, organizations, and private businesses. It is not atypical for entities to look at ways to best manage their personnel retirement programs. This is pretty routine across government entities, across educational entities, across various public service agencies and organizations. And so it is absolutely most appropriate for us to be looking at this particular type of program as a very positive, constructive change that will address that competitive nature of the marketplace. But in addition, the financial impact of retirements as we look from today into the future. I think staff has done an incredible job here of outlining our current program and also the options that are available to us. The options of making sure that we are providing a service credit purchase opportunity, I think is in keeping with trends today and most appropriate. Frankly, it can help us to save costs down the road as we're looking at salaries. And that's pretty typical. It happens quite frequently in public agencies. And the other thing is the opportunity today, which there's been a lot of discussion about, to move to 401k plan opportunities for pensions and savings to the employer. On one hand, it looks like, all right, we're contributing a higher level, and we are 14%, but 14% is certainly not out of line, and on a competitive, comparable basis, it is indeed most appropriate. So I want to commend staff. I think this is great. And it would be my honor if it's appropriate, Chair, for you to move to approve this well-inscribed plan.
Thank you, Dr. Sagar.
Doctor.
Mr. Chairman, I see no additional hands at this time.
Okay, we've had a motion by Dr. Sagar. Need a second.
We have a second by Director Holt.
Thank you, Alex. All right, with that, Mr. Secretary, please take the roll.
Director Indalcio.
Aye.
Director Canty.
Aye.
Director Carey.
Aye.
Director Colson.
Aye.
Director Fuentes.
Aye.
Director Gavin.
Aye.
Director Gorman.
Aye.
Director Groven.
Aye.
Director Holt.
Aye.
Director Kotel.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Yes.
Director Pang,
Yes.
Director Ross,
Yes.
Director Sager,
Yes.
Chairman Dillon.
Aye.
15 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Nadine, and our actuaries, counsel, Thompson Weir, to all of you who put in the work to analyze that very thoroughly. Next is 7G, an ordinance authorizing a contract to conduct grant closeout audits. And Leilene Alvarez, I believe, is here to answer any questions on this. Leilene, anything we need to know?
No additional comments at this time, Mr. Chairman, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions if there's any.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Any questions on this? If not, I'll entertain a motion in a second on 7G.
Motion by Director Carey, a second by Director Cotel.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, please take a roll call on this item.
Sure. Director Indulcio.
Aye.
Director Canty.
Aye.
Director Carey.
Aye.
Director Colson.
Aye.
Director Fuentes.
Aye.
Director Gadding.
Aye.
Director Gorman.
Aye.
Director Groven. Director Holt.
Yes.
Director Cotel.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Yes.
Director Pang.
Yes.
Director Ross.
Yes.
Director Sager.
Yes.
Chairman Dillon.
Aye.
15 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and that is so approved. 7H is an ordinance authorizing a contract for aerial photography, and Jill Leary is available to answer any questions if there are any. Not motion and a second on this one.
See no hands at this moment, Mr. Chairman. I believe Director Groven has a motion with Director Holt as a second.
Thank you. And with that, Jeremy, please take a roll call vote on this one.
Sure. Director Indulcio.
Aye.
Director Canty.
Aye.
Director Carey.
Aye.
Director Colson.
Aye.
Director Fuentes.
Aye.
Director Gadding.
Aye.
Director Gorman.
Aye.
Director Groven.
Aye.
Director Holt.
Aye.
Director Cotel.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Yes.
Director Pang.
Yes.
Director Ross.
Yes.
Director Sager.
Yes.
Chairman Dillon.
Aye.
15 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And 7H is adopted. 7I is the approval of any travel expense reimbursements as required. If there's no questions on that, how about a motion and a second on 7I?
We have a motion from Director Indulcio and a second from Director Ross.
Thank you, gentlemen. With that, how about a roll call vote, Mr. Secretary?
Director Indulcio.
Aye.
Director Canty.
Aye.
Director Carey.
Aye.
Director Colson.
Aye.
Director Fuentes.
Aye.
Director Gadding.
Aye.
Director Gorman.
Aye.
Director Groven.
Aye.
Director Holt.
Aye.
Director Cotel.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Yes.
Director Pang.
Yes.
Director Ross.
Yes.
Director Sager.
Yes.
Chairman Dillon.
Aye.
15 ayes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and that is approved. Before we go on to any new business, Leanne, any new business or anything that we need to wrap up or we've forgotten?
Not to my knowledge, Mr. Chairman. I think we have covered everything we need to today.
Great, thank you. Covered a lot of ground, which is good. I just want to give a shout out to Tina Smith, the Forward for All campaign. I've run into a number of people, continues to get rave reviews, and Tina and all of you on the staff. It's really, really, really well done, very professional, and gets rave reviews by civic groups and others that are out there in the field. So thank you very much. And I want to thank Director Gorman for joining me down at the 147th and Sibley Boulevard groundbreaking with the governor the other day as well. Item 8 is new business. Any new business to come before the board for discussion only today?
Chairman, I see no hands at the moment.
Great. Then we'll move on to how about a motion and a second to adjourn. Our next meeting, it's hard to believe it's going to be June 16th already. Our
Motion by,
next meeting.
motion by Director Carey and a second by Director Sager.
Thank you. With that, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Have a good week.
Have a good day.